Hi, I'm Faye and I am your Secret Ballet coach. Today's class is a foot and lower leg release using a tennis ball. So all you need for this is a tennis ball. This is really good if you're traveling and you don't want to carry a full foam roller with you, or if you just want to throw this in your dance bag before you go to class. You're just gonna get any regular tennis ball. You could also use like a racquetball or even a baseball, although a baseball is gonna be a lot firmer, so you might wanna make sure you're doing it on a mat if you're using a ball that is not gonna have give to it. So I recommend a tennis ball. They're just really easy to come by. The first thing you're gonna do is for your arches. So you're just gonna place that ball underneath your arch and supporting yourself so that you can press down into it a little. You're just gonna roll under the bottom of your arch for a little bit. And you might notice that if you go towards the inside of your foot or you go towards the outside of your foot, one part of it is going to be significantly more tight. You might feel some like crunchies in there. You might come across some muscle knots that are really stuck. If you find a spot that's particularly tight, you can always just move this a little bit closer. You can always just hold it like a trigger point. So you can just find that knot and you can just put some pressure on it and then take a few deep breaths and try to imagine that that knot is releasing. Okay. And then you're going to, after doing that for about 30 seconds to a minute, you should feel it getting a little bit looser. Oof, my inside arch is really tight. Then you can switch to the other foot. So same thing, put it under your arch, support yourself so you can put some pressure on that foot, roll it back and forth. Try the outside edge. Try the inner edge. And then if you find a place that's really tight, for a lot of you it might be right under your heel or right in front of your heel, you can just press the trigger point and hold it and take a few deep breaths to release it. And if you feel it easing off a little, you can go back to rolling it, or you can stay if you need it. Oof. Okay, so once you've done your arch, we're gonna move on to our calves. So you're gonna place the tennis ball on the belly of the muscle under your calf, like this. Plant your opposite foot, place your arms behind you, and for some of you, just having the ball under the belly of the muscle might be intense enough and you don't actually need to roll it back and forth. If that's you, I would just recommend trying different places and then just holding and deep breathing until it releases. If that's not quite enough, then starting with it sort of in the center, you can pick your hips up off the floor just a little bit and support yourself with your foot planted, and then just slowly roll forwards and back, up and down your calf. And again, you might find that like the outside is a lot tighter than the inside. So you can try turning in that leg, getting more of the inside. And if you find a really tight spot, you can just hold and take a couple deep breaths. And then continue rolling until you find another tight spot. And so you can play with turning out your leg and getting the outside and turning it in to get to the inside, and then finding a spot and holding it there. Good. Now, for a lot of dancers, because we use our calves so much, it's gonna be kind of a never-ending search for these knots. So I'd say pick your top 1 or 2 or 3, focus on those, and then call it a day. If you try to get rid of every single knot in your calf in one go, you're gonna be A, doing this for a really long time, and be very sore from it. So I don't recommend trying to eliminate every single knot. Just find the top offenders and work from there. And remember, if you aren't feeling it enough, you can try flexing your foot, but for a lot of people that's going to be way too intense, so I actually recommend just letting it stay relaxed. And for some of you, just holding with the ball underneath your calf is going to be enough. Don't feel like you have to roll it. And roll forward. And you might notice that one leg is a lot tighter than the other. So one leg might need more time. Don't feel like you have to be perfectly symmetrical in how you do this. If you do it for 30 seconds on one leg and 1 minute on the other, that's perfectly okay. When you find a tight spot, just hold and take a few breaths. And then roll again when it starts to ease off, and rotating it out, rotating it in. Good. And then from there, we're gonna move on to our shins. Now this one's a little bit awkward to actually roll. So I recommend doing this more as a trigger point. So you're gonna tuck in one knee, plant your other foot on the floor, and you're gonna start at the top, like right below your shin bone, right? So on your leg, you have your kneecap, you have your patella tendon right under your kneecap, and then your shin bone starts, and there's gonna be a little knobby bone on the outside, and then the main shin bone in the front. You wanna put the ball right between the front and side bones under your patella tendon. So you're not putting the ball on your knee or under your kneecap. You're going below your shin bone and between that front and side bone right here, okay? So you're gonna place that ball, and for some of you this might be really tight, and for some of you, you might not really feel it, and that's okay. And you're just going to sort of lean into the tennis ball. You don't wanna go harder than is comfortable. You just wanna see if you have any knots. So then you're gonna roll the ball down a little bit and then just lean. And if you find a point that's really, really tight, again, just hold it there where you can. Take deep breaths and try to just imagine that it's letting go, and when you feel it start to ease off, then you can move it a little lower down. And you might be really tight lower down, or you might be really tight up by your knee. Everybody is different based on where your muscle tightness tends to go based on your body. And then the last one is gonna be kind of right by your ankle, but not on your ankle yet. So you don't wanna go past that ankle bone just yet. You're just going down your shin. Good, and then do the other side. So plant that foot, find that spot between the center and the side little knobs, and then lean into that tennis ball. And again, you're gonna notice one side is a lot tighter than the other. And when you find a tight spot, just hold it a little longer and breathe. that last one right above your ankle. And then let it go. Good. So now we're gonna move up to our hamstrings. Now, your hamstrings are always going to be pretty tight just because we use them all the time. We use them when we're dancing, we use them when we're not dancing. So there's not really a person on the planet who's just gonna have no tightness in their hamstrings. So what I would recommend is that you really pay attention to how it's feeling. They might be super tight, which means that something like a trigger point pressure is going to be really intense. So you need to listen to your body. If it feels so tight that you get the sensation that like something might tear, right? Like it kind of locks out, ease up on the pressure. Just because if you overdo it, you're going to either injure your muscle or bruise something, and then you have to take time off to heal. Nobody wants to do that. So you want to place this right at the top. So where your sit bone is, you're actually going to place it in front of your sit bone. Okay, so you can do that by sitting on both your sit bones, bend your knee up, place the ball as high as you can without interfering with your actual sit bone on the ground. Then you're going to extend that leg out, bend your other leg to support you, hold on to that knee, try to sit all the way up on your sit bones. Now, for some of you, that might be enough. That might be intense enough that you don't need to go any farther. If that's not really that intense for you, reach forward, grab those toes, and extend your leg up. Pull your foot up a little bit, leaning forward. If that's not intense enough for you, then you can actually roll forward onto that, grab with the opposite arm, and pull up so that your angle of your pelvis is a little bit more forward. That's a little too intense for me, so I'm gonna go to this one, but that might be where you're at. And you're just gonna hold. So for this, we're not gonna roll just because it's gonna be, for most people, intense enough that the trigger point is all you really need to do. Rolling is going to be pushing it a little bit too far. So the reason you pick up your foot is actually just to put more pressure on the ball. So if you feel a lot just sitting on it, just sit on it. You don't need to do this second piece. It's just a little bonus. If you want to go a little further, then you're going to breathe and exhale. And each exhale, just feel it easing off a little bit more. And then you're going to switch. So, sitting up on your sit bones, put that ball right underneath in the front of that sit bone. There we go. Extend that leg out, and then bend this knee and reach forward. Now for me, this leg is much tighter, so I'm just gonna flex my foot on this side to start. That might be all you need to do, or you might need to keep it relaxed if it's really intense for you. And as you take deep breaths and let it ease off, then you can try reaching forward and picking up that foot. And again, if you really want to maximize it, switch arms and think of arching in your lower back so that your pelvis comes forward. And I would recommend for the big muscles, like your hamstrings and quads, that you want to hold this a little longer, just because there's more for it to release. It's a much larger muscle, and it might just need a little more time to ease off. Okay, so now from there, we're going to move on to our quads. So there's another kind of awkward one to get into, but there's a couple different ways you can do it. If you're really tight in your quads, I suggest laying on your stomach. You can put your hand under your head, place the tennis ball, bend your knee up, and just hold the trigger points, much like we did with the front of your shin, moving the ball down sort of as you go. If that's not enough for you, and you want to do more of the rolling, I would get into sort of a pigeon position with one knee forward. Place the ball underneath your thigh, roll forward onto it. Let's see if I can get there, yeah. And then you can do that way. So it's kind of like a stretch and the acupoint at the same time. I'm gonna show the one on your stomach because I have tight quads. So just placing it underneath. Start at the top. So you're not gonna put it totally in your hip joint. You're gonna go a little bit further down. And you're gonna bend that knee and just hold it. And take deep breaths. And let it go. And then slide it down to the next point. And same thing. And if you find a spot that is particularly tight, spend extra time on it. Don't just skip over it. And all the way down to above your knee. And then switch sides. Starting at the top. And then slowly moving that ball a little bit lower. And then down to more above your knee. And then let it go. Okay, so that's the best way that I've found to get into those quads. But like I said, if you prefer to sort of roll it, then I would go forward into more of a pigeon position and use your arms to help pull it back and forth. But that's pretty intense with a tennis ball, so that might be too much for a lot of people. Now we're gonna work on the outside of our legs. So I would start with like a mermaid position, not full mermaid like this, but with sort of both knees on the ground. And you're gonna put the tennis ball underneath the thigh towards the top. Whew, that's tight. And you're just gonna hang out and breathe. This is gonna be a tight one on pretty much everybody. It's a little bit like hamstrings. Most people's outside of their thigh is going to be incredibly tight. And then you're gonna move it down and breathe. Now, if this is too intense for you, you can put both hands on the ground so that you can pull a little bit more weight off of that thigh, or you can put your butt on the ground and just let the weight of your leg press into it. For some of you, that might be enough, rather than being all the way up on it. And then move it down and breathe. And one more time, a little bit close to the knee. That gets really tight for me, so I'm going to put my hips down on the ground for that one. And the last one, you don't want to press on your knee, but you're going to go kind of a couple inches above your knee and just press and hold. And then switch to the other side. So you're gonna put both knees on the other side on the floor. Place this ball underneath the top of that hip on the side of your leg and hold. I guess it'd be the top of your thigh, not the top of your hip, but. And then when you're ready, move it down a little bit. And remember, you can always put your hips down or put both arms on the floor and take a little pressure off if it's too intense. And then scoot it down a little further. Oof. And then down to a few inches above your knee. And on that one, I'm going to keep my hips down. And each time, just concentrating on nice, deep breaths as you release. All right, and then the last thing we're gonna do for today's is our glutes. So, you're going to take that ball now above to the side of your hip. You're gonna lean, extend that leg out, and just roll over it. So it should be above that thigh bone, and just letting your body weight sink down. And again, for some of you, this may be really, really tight, which means you wanna push with your arms to give it a little bit of space or less weight on it. But if you're ready to dig in there, just let your body weight slowly sink towards the ball. And you can play with going further forward with the ball or rolling more towards your back with the ball. Your glutes are a pretty big group of muscles, so there's a lot of little spots. You can also bend this knee up and roll directly back. So this is going to be on the opposite side of your sit bone. So your hamstring was in front of your sit bone. This is now behind your sit bone. And you can just hang out here and breathe. And then again, if one side is significantly tighter than the other, spend extra time on it. Nothing wrong with that. And then when you're ready, flip over to the other side, extending that leg out, starting with the side of your hip. Remember, it's above the top of that thigh bone. And you can roll it so that it's more forward. Or you can roll it so that it's more back. And when you're ready, you can bend that knee up, roll it directly back to the other side of your sits bone, and hang out there and breathe. This one is really tight on me. On this side, it's way tighter than the other side. And in each place that you hold, taking a couple deep breaths, or as many as you need. You could hold it up to a minute if you wanted, 2 minutes if you wanted even, if it's really tight and you just have to keep trying to release it. But for most people, after 2 or 3 deep breaths, it will ease off a little bit. And then you can roll it to the next position, and you can roll up towards the top of your hip bone. You can roll it down closer to your sits bone. Wherever you notice that it's tight, find a tight spot, hold it, and breathe. All right? So that is my foot and lower leg release using a tennis ball. I like to do this when I've had a long travel, when I'm touring, if I'm just getting ready before or after class and I feel like something is getting extra tight. I think it's really good for injury prevention and also just a way to check in with your body and see if anything needs your attention. Sometimes we push through and we just work really hard in class and we don't actually notice how tight something is until we injure it. So this can be a good way just to check in and be like, is my hamstring okay? Is my ankle okay? How are my calves, my arches, all that stuff. So I recommend doing this on a pretty regular basis to prevent injury and just relax and ease the tension in your muscles. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked today's class, please don't forget to like and subscribe below. If you have any questions or would like to request any topics, please leave it in the comments. And as always, you can email me at secretballetcoach@gmail.com. Until next time, keep it on the QT.